Hello, David Zritsky for the Bond Experience. Welcome back. I am here with special guest star Luke Taggart of Bond's Apartment.
Hello.
How are you, brother?
Good. How are you?
You got your Nespresso?
I do. It's that Luke Espresso.
That's right. And it's the morning of the first day of Gatherall. And we're going to be, we haven't showered or shaved yet, so you'll have to excuse us. Are you shaving? No.
No.
Yeah, you're already.
I always keep a little shadow.
Like a 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock.
Yeah. Tonight it'll be.
And you drink 8 o'clock coffee?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Same thing.
Listen, we're here, as you can see by the thumbnail, to talk about a rather controversial subject. And I chose Luke to talk about this, not because his stance on this, but because he is a blunt instrument. And he is not afraid of grappling with these difficult and sometimes controversial conversations. Like, I don't know what it is, but I've made an observation. I was telling you just now about it. In the last year especially, many people are coming out of the woodwork and saying, you know, I've always liked Spectre better than SkyFall. And I want to explore this because I think I know where you stand, and we're going to get to that in a second. But the thing that really motivated me to do this video was nothing that was said in the Bond community. It was something that Quentin Tarantino said in an interview.
Ooh.
And Quentin Tarantino was interviewed about Bond films, and he said something very crazy that the interviewer was shocked about is, I love Spectre much more than Skyfall. And his defense was that Spectre is like a real James Bond movie. There's an evil layer at the end that blows up. You've got Bond on a mission. You've got all these, you've got the tropes of James Bond. He said, Skyfall, you've got him in a house. You've got him protecting M. M dies. You got the Home Alone situation. He's like, there are parts of Skyfall that don't connect. He said the bad guy, it's too consequential. You know, it's too convenient that all these things are happening. He said from a storyline standpoint, he loves Spectre more. Just in general, he thought the action was better. And I thought to myself, Quentin, because we're first name, Quentin is not alone. But let's start off with the basis. Skyfall or Spectre, which one is your druther?
Skyfall.
Why?
I love Skyfall.
Why? Hold on, I'm going to fix your mic. There we go.
Skyfall, to me, is probably my second favorite Bond, period.
Whoa, what's your first?
Casino Royale.
Okay, and then Skyfall.
Yeah. So for starters, first of all, from a sartorial standpoint, you can't, in my opinion, you can't really top Spectre.
Do you find Spectre better than Quantum as far as sartorial?
Yes. For the way I like to dress, the
Okay.
fit of the clothes.
Yeah, get into the defense
His hair,
of this.
I think his hair's a little long in Quantum.
Okay.
It's a little too short in Skyfall. It's very Goldilocks.
Just
Yeah.
Just gonna say,
I feel like we've done that before.
you're doing the Goldilocks
I feel like
defense.
I'm always doing Goldilocks.
Instead of the Goldfinger defense, the Goldilocks.
Yeah, but back to Skyfall. So Skyfall, to me, I thought the score was fantastic.
Yeah.
The score in Spectre is not fantastic. I think Javier Bardem is fantastic. I like the introduction of Q. You know, you've got Ray Fiennes in there eventually playing M. I like having the eventual Moneypenny reveal at the end. I just think it was a movie that was very, very well written, well acted, well done, well location scouted. Everything about it. It was a fun movie. I mean, yes, M dies, but there's something about, like, if you look at the way that Skyfall ends with M dying, it actually ends with like an upbeat, like let's get down to work.
Yeah, like that
Not
happened.
like No Time to Die. You know what I mean? And I get that you're seeing M pass away, but it's more so like there's probably a point in time where Judi Dench was like, yeah, I'm good with not having to do Bond films anymore.
I think you're right. The death of M is very different than the deaths
Yeah.
the Godfather-like deaths that you see in No Time to Die, because it wove very well with the story as opposed to all of the deaths, and there were many in No Time to Die. Other than Bond, it really didn't cater to the story very well, and even his sacrifice, a lot of people are like, where did that come from? It was out of left field. Other than a request from an actor, it didn't have a lot of relevance to the story. But I will say this, so here's my stance on this. Because you're thinking like, oh, this is going to be a counterpoint, Spectre against Skyfall. What a video, I'm going to get my popcorn. Yeah, It's
I knew
not.
it wouldn't be.
I like Skyfall better than Spectre. However, I will say this. I understand the people that are saying this because I have re-explored Spectre since No Time to Die came out.
Me too.
To come back and go, maybe it's one of the Craig fun films that I can just enjoy. And as individual, I'll call them vignettes, like the individual parts, like the Solden part, the airplane part, obviously Mexico City, everybody loves.
Yep. Yep.
I can actually take those and embrace them separately and say, you know something, these are kind of fun.
Nice sequences.
They're nice sequences. Skyfall, the difference with Skyfall is it weaves good sequences together with great characters and great story, and they all fit together.
Yep.
So if I want to see, I'm just going to say it, if I want to see Bond porn, which is like individual scenes that I just kind of get off on because it's Bond and then move on and do something else in my day, Spectre's a very worthy opponent. If I want to see a movie that just feels very complete, like a Bond movie, I'm going to go Skyfall every time.
And what you just said kind of also highlights Quentin Tarantino's point. Makes sense, but you got to remember, if you watch Casino Royale, then Quantum, and then Skyfall, Skyfall is that original Bond film compared to those two. You've got Q, you've got M, you've got gadgets, you've got all these tropes that you didn't have in Quantum and in Casino Royale. Maybe they did it a little more Roger Moore in Spectre, a little more to the formula
and stuff.
But for today, and Quentin Tarantino, I love Quentin Tarantino, and he's big on classic movies, so I completely understand where he's coming from.
And he's a moviephile, I get it. He studies and understands movies better than you and I ever will, but
he knows movies better than probably anybody.
But I'll take another defense of Skyfall against Spectre in this case of there are too many things in Spectre for me that do not work. The car chase does not work. The end scene, the Bond layer that actually Quentin Tarantino says, oh, he's got the Bond layer in the desert and it blows
the
up.
biggest explosion.
And it's like, yeah, but it feels unimportant.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but out of all of the Bond layer moments, going back to even Connery, you've got volcanoes, you've got all these big ending moments. This one doesn't feel
necessary.
That's a great word. Like, how is it germane to the story that just took place? It's really not. Like, is there something happening at that location that activates Blofeld's plot? No. I mean, you could argue that No Time to Die has more of a relevance of a layer than that one.
Yeah, I mean, and I always say this. So you're telling me, and if you follow my channel or the podcast or any of the things that I've done, I've probably said it on all of them. So you're telling me, so after his layer blew up, he flew to London, got some Scotch tape, printed out a bunch of pictures of villains and taped them up at the bottom of the MI6 building?
Yeah.
That's, to me, it's like this is the problem. You have Casino Royale, which is like almost hyper-realistic, trying to compete with the Bournes or whatever. And then Quantum kind of follows that path. Skyfall kind of gets back to the roots while still staying pretty realistic. And then you've got Scotch-taped headshots of villains and layers, and so it's like, I get it, but
can we linger on that for a second? Because you're hitting on a vital subject I wasn't going to cover, which is I love the escapism of Bond films, but I don't want it so removed from reality that it feels like just a pure, like, I'll give you a perfect example, Fast and Furious film.
Yeah.
I just saw X, number 10, I guess, Fast and Furious.
Sorry to hear that.
But it was so much fun because I knew coming into it that there were going to be cars that go flying through the air and land and the tires are fine. That's not Bond. Bond should be a little bit of fantasy sprinkled with a lot of reality and fun and heroic and all those things that we want, but messy. And Spectre is too much of the fantasy. Like, things are just too conveniently laid out. Like, I love it when Quintino. I like that I'm conjugating his name.
By the end, just call him QT.
By the way, he's coming on right now. Let's welcome Quintino.
Could you freaking imagine, though? God.
You think he'd come on the channel?
No.
Don't say no,
Actually,
but he
maybe.
might. This is a challenge for anybody that knows Quentin Tarantino, or as I like to call him, Quintino.
Or QT.
Or QT for
What a
sure.
cutie.
No, you see, now he's never going to come because you baited him badly.
No.
But seriously, one of the things he says about Spectre that he absolutely loves is the reality play in all of these things. But even the airplane scene in Solden, in Spectre, the problem that a lot of people have with it, especially me, is pilots like Horev from Israel said he's a pilot and he looked at that scene and he just laughed. He's like,
Right.
the plane would never do that in any form, function. It was almost like Wile E. Coyote cartoon
Right,
type stuff.
right.
Whereas Skyfall, I get it, the Home Alone moments, but damn, dude, they felt real.
But yeah, but it's like that's the thing though. Like take it as a trope then. They're having a little fun with a movie that at this point was mostly serious.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
they're like I don't know, I didn't mind it. I mean, you got to see the home Bond grew up in, like come on.
Super cool. And I
Yeah.
love any time that you can tear apart and build back Bond.
Yeah.
I think it was done very effectively in Skyfall, but the moments with Brofeld of trying to align his family to Blofeld did not work. So we got to talk about the next factor of this. We got to talk about the bad guys. You already said that you love Silva, but talk to me about Silva versus Blofeld. Who wins?
So
Tell me why.
he was just way better written. It was a waste of an Oscar winner with Blofeld. I think Blofeld was better in No Time to Die than he was in all of Spectre.
I tend to
I
agree.
think he was more menacing. He had like a nice little monologue.
Yeah.
I think it was a wasted thing. I mean, and this is, I'm so, you know, we're all diehard Bond.
Little bit.
Like when they announced the cast for Skyfall, you're like, oh my God, you got Judi Dench, Oscar winner. You got Javier Bardem, Oscar winner. You got all these just mega stars, not even,
Schmega
but just mega talent.
Yeah.
Period. You're like, how can you make and then Sam Mendes, you're like, you can't make a bad film. And he didn't.
Right.
And then when they announced Spectre, you're like, oh my God, now you've got
same
Christoph
crew.
Waltz. You're like, how do you go wrong? And don't get me wrong, I'm a sucker for the new movie. So when it came out, I loved it, and I thought sartorially it was great. I was living in New York at the time. I was like, oh my God, like, you know, and it's cold. So
When
I was like,
Spectre
I
came
gotta.
out, you were living in New
I
York.
was living in New
I
York.
didn't know
Yeah.
that.
So like I could have, you know, I was like, oh, I gotta wear this Solden outfit somewhere.
Yeah.
I gotta wear this Dior jacket, like
Yeah.
whatever it is. But then as time goes on, you're kind of like, I'm still reaching for Skyfall or Casino. So yeah, as far as the bad guys go, I think Christoph was a wasted talent.
Let me ask you a question. Could Skyfall be benefited from, and therefore Spectre decreased because of expectations? Because you came off of Quantum of Solace, which a lot of people did not like. I'm just going to say it. I do. But a lot of people didn't. So they were disappointed after Casino that it wasn't Casino Part 2. And then you have Skyfall, and then the expectations are so high that Spectre could only lose against Skyfall. The
That makes
expectations
sense.
are too
That
high.
Okay, so say you put Spectre before Skyfall. Do you think it would have done better?
Do I think Spectre would have done better box office, or would be better in our
No,
eyes?
because box office it was over $1 billion.
Yeah.
In our eyes, I don't think critically
It's a good
speaking.
question.
I think critics are able to put all of that aside. I
Yeah,
think they
agreed.
judge a movie at a time. So as far as if it went Casino and then Spectre, and then you could do Quantum, Skyfall, whatever order, do you think it would have been more likable? Or is that too stark of a shift?
I think the problem would have been, so I'm going to say no, and thank you for bringing this out, because I think coming off of the somewhat disappointing Quantum of Solace for most people, you would have had another disappointment of Spectre, because a lot of people didn't like the third act, for example. And then you would have had people saying, oh, Casino Royale was a flash in the pan.
Oh, you mean when he takes down a helicopter with a Walther?
They would have said it was, okay, Casino Royale was a fluke because you had Die Another Day, you had Quantum of Solace, and you had Spectre. So Casino Royale is a diamond in the rough. But because you had Skyfall, they're like, okay.
Oh, well, I'll tell
we're
you
going to be
this
hit
right
and
now.
miss.
I'll tell you this right now. I would absolutely prefer Quantum over Spectre.
That's radical.
Oh yeah, because it. But this is the thing though.
We just shifted
The one
whole
thing that
subject.
does bother me, I think, at this point with Quantum, and you got to think, they actually made a pretty damn good movie with the writer's strike and all these awful things going
100%.
on during Quantum. The plot hole with Mathis is a little irritating.
Because he dies? Or?
No, because I mean, it was very clearly he was part of the problem in Casino Royale, and then they're like, let's say he wasn't. Like he was. That movie
that's-
ended with him being
That's like
the
a
problem.
Star Wars Reddit, where it's like,
right.
Palpatine didn't die. He just was
multiple
cloned.
multiple times.
Yeah.
But like, so then in Spectre, you got kind of the Brofeld, yes, but then I think it was like a shiny toy. They got Spectre back. They were like, how do we write this? I don't know. I just think they should have shelved it and let the new actor pick up the Spectre stuff.
A lot of people feel with Spectre that it really should have ended before they got to the layer, or no, after the layer. Like the layer portion should have been longer and more Bond-like with,
So they never should have went back to London.
correct.
Yeah,
A lot of people say that. If you just ended there, that would have been great.
probably.
And I don't know if I disagree, because if you had taken the layer portion and done it like, almost like a You Only Live Twice, where there's more happening, there's more engagement there, there's more stakes, because there's no stakes. Basically, Bond is there, Bond gets strapped to a chair, Bond breaks out, layer done. The layer's done.
Yeah.
Whereas Skyfall, Bond's home, which is kind of like the end layer, if you will, that is an important set piece.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot that happens there. There's an exploration of Bond, exploration of M, Kincaid, his past. Silva you find out more about, and the connection there. And then there's bad to bad. I mean, just, yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing too, interesting about Spectre, I always go back to the trailer. They had that very eerie Bond theme in the trailer.
Oh,
It was kind of like bells.
oh, ding, ding, ding,
Yeah,
ding. It's my ringtone.
It was so
It's my
good.
text ringtone. yeah.
And nothing outside of like the Rome scene where we first meet Blofeld, nothing's like eerie about it.
That's true. And
like they
Spectre
kinda-
should be a shadowy organization.
Yeah, they kind of like really hinted at like this could be kind of like a thriller.
Yeah.
And it just
That's a good point. Like, all right, so again, raising the stakes, Silva seemed very dangerous. You have that great
yeah.
opening.
And he was scary looking.
You have the great opening with the Bond evil woman, who's not really evil, but who says, what do you know about fear? What do you know about death? What do you know about, like, all these things? And it's really sounding like this guy's all there is. It's that very eeriness of like, oh gosh, this guy must be terrible. And then even his walk from the elevator is pure Bond. But then in Spectre, the problem is that Spectre doesn't seem like an important or really scary organization. They do a lot of things wrong between Mexico City and even their big meeting. They allow Bond to walk in, and you could say, oh no, Blofeld allowed Bond to walk in. Fair. He got in on his own. And I don't know, it just seems a little bit less maniacal.
Mickey Mouse. Yeah. And you know what though, from a I'll say this from a Quentin Tarantino standpoint.
Quintino?
As in, we'll call it a Quintino standpoint. So from a Quintino standpoint, as an AKA cinephile, when you've got Javier Bardem doing like a 4-minute monologue, walking towards you, I mean, it's like
Boink, 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 boink.
It's a great scene.
Love it.
They said we've got a powerhouse actor. Let's give him something to work with.
And they missed that in Spectre.
Yes.
Because you have Christoph Waltz, who is
And I think
unbelievable.
They missed it in No Time to Die too, but that's part 2 of this video.
But No Time to Die. Here's the great thing. What I don't see happening, and if this happens in a couple years, I'll be surprised, but not entirely surprised, because when you give a Bond film a little bit of time, it does wonders. Quantum of Solace is a great example. I used to be the odd man out, almost like cowering in my corner in a fetal position, sweating, thinking that I love this film. And now it's become de rigueur for people to love that film.
Yeah.
So maybe, and Spectre seems like it's on the rise, so maybe given enough time, will No Time to Die ever come back as a positive?
I think so. It already has for me.
What happened to you?
Well, no, more so in the sense where I can pull the positives out of it. See, this is as a content creator, there's other negatives to it that technically aren't even related to the film. The fact that we had so much trailer that we were like, okay, well, there'll probably be another outfit or two. We knew every outfit. I mean, there was a point in time I think I was talking to you, or either talking to you or on the podcast, where I was like, I'm pretty sure I can kind of decipher the arc of the story from, and I was dead on.
Yeah.
And it was, but it's not because it's me. It was like, at this point, you're like, okay, he obviously is going to start here, he's going to end up here, and it's going to end here. And it did.
Yeah.
That is a negative. It will always be a negative.
I'm going to use the Star Wars. Stay on target with this content, because you're right. But as it relates to Spectre, I think that's why people are maybe revisiting Spectre.
You asked me about No Time to Die.
I didn't mean it. Just because I ask you something in this
Answering
video,
the question.
I don't want you to actually answer. I want you to go into my head and mind F me and
Where's Dan
understand
Rather
what I
when you need
want.
him?
Poor Dan Rather.
What happened to Dan Rather?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought you were in.
But anyways, I mean, my thoughts on Spectre are the same. It's to me, it's the best sartorial film.
Yeah.
For me.
But Skyfall wins in the race.
It's just a better movie. It's a better movie.
And I've got to agree with you on both of those accounts. And also, I do understand people's resurgence around Spectre. You and I are going to watch it eagerly. I think it's what really motivated this.
Spectre or The Resurgence?
The resurgence
Okay,
of
I was
Spectre.
going to say I'm not watching Spectre.
Yeah. You can watch Spectre again.
It's not that bad.
It's got some good parts.
But.
That's all we're saying. All right. Luke Taggart, everybody. Answering the important questions that I don't want answered, like No Time to Die. And of course, this has been David Zertsky for the Bond Experience. We'll see you all real soon.
That's like me saying, hey, what's your name?
I'm not going
And
to
you
tell
say
you.
David, and I go, why are you stay on target?
But I mean, we have to do that. Take care. Thanks for watching this episode. If you want to be up on the latest from the Bond Experience, just click on this subscribe and subscribe to our channel. You're going to get all the latest and greatest information, plus some exclusive content. And by the way, speaking of content, here's something especially for you, just because we know you. Talk to you soon.